r/AskReddit. Cruise ship crews of Reddit. What's it really like to work and live on a cruise ship? I worked on a major cruise line out of a port in Florida. Crew bar has cheap drinks, but you're technically never supposed to be drunk. You can find most crew they're usually always smoking cigarettes, drinking beers and getting a little too drunk. Not much else to do when the ship is at sea. Most crew members have families back home and a lot have girlfriends on board as well. That is just a part of ship life. Crew members are super hardworking, and work weeks are 70 hours a week without a single day off for 6 to 8 months at a time. Most crew members rely on tips for their wages. My position was salaried for $58 a day. I was an officer on board working in the guest services office. Came out to roughly $1,400 a month after taxes. No one else is taxed besides Americans on board. The best way to describe no days off is waking up to your alarm, and every single day feels like a Monday morning for those that actually have normal work weeks. My position shared a bedroom with bunk beds and really small bathrooms. You could shit, shave your legs, and brush your teeth all at the same time. Depending upon your position on board, determined if you had guest area privileges. I was allowed in guest areas, but after spending all day with the guests, that's the last thing I wanted to do. You're always on duty and your supervisors have 24-hour access to you at all times by just ringing your phone and waking you up in your cabin. Sleep was very limited, so every off hour was spent trying to catch up. Wi-Fi was $5 a day for 24-hour access to limited social media apps or $10 for 100 minutes unrestricted. I spent way too much money on the shitty Wi-Fi. Overall, the people you live and work with is what makes your experience on board. Some days are worse than others, but you somehow manage to get through it. Cruise ship musician here. Came to say a few things. Firstly, I really only perform in party bands, aka lounge/cover band. We play the big events that aren't the nightly shows in the theater. Ship life is basically high school mixed with jail. Remember high school, where everyone knew everything about everyone's business? Who was macking whom, cheating on so and so, doing this and that, being a such and such. Well, that's ship life in a nutshell. The bar is where we all congregate, it's where we all commiserate, and it's our only meat market option, because sleeping with guests is not tolerated. Oh, and cheap booze is great. $1.50-2 beer, $2.50-3.00 mixed drinks. Now, let's add in the jail factor. You're in it in can, and you can't leave. Some people can never get off when in port, because their jobs don't allow for it. I was lucky. Musicians have an evening schedule that revolves around guest schedules, so we could easily get off in port, as long as we weren't working on skeleton crew that day. Oh, and that involved us staying in and doing nothing, or laundry, unless a fire broke out somewhere, and even then we'd stand at a staircase and lead people to a muster station. Yep, safety is important, and entertainers are front-facing staff, so we put on our nice faces and tell people where to go and what to do. Now, my gig was always easy. I mostly step into party bands. Egg bands need a bassist. I get called, I just join up and go. I have a master song list of over 400 songs and a few contracts. I'm pretty lucky like that. We'd go, play for a few hours, then off to the bar or for food. Speaking of food, crew mess was always horrible. It's mostly geared towards the crew who are from Asia/India. It's not always bad, Paresi, but it's not what you always want. We had access to the guest buffet, where we'd normally eat. Some ships give more, some give less. Some ship ranks give more, etc. Ships are a very classist system. I can't stress that enough. If you're into social justice, it's a case study worth exploring. Sometimes, the work is exploitative, other times it's demeaning, but these crew have to support their families somehow, and often it's better than what's at home. I've tried to curb my entitlement each time I've been on board. My last contract featured the party band doing a 20/30s style party. We'd take newer songs and put them to a swing beat and a walking bass line. Google postmodern jukebox for a sample. Another party was back to school style, where we'd dress up in stereotypical prep school uniforms and play 60s 2000s tunes. Sometimes it was a bore, sometimes it was awesome. Their biggest party was the white party, which had us playing music from the 70s more, with everyone decked out completely in white clothing. People got drunk, we played and they danced. Not bad. Our job is basically to drive bar sales and make people want to stay. If we failed, they'd have to run extra events in the lounges, which meant more work for the bar staff and the entertainment staff, and then the band would get in some heavy shit. My last ship was smaller, 700 crew, 1800 guests, and the crew bar was a dingy room off the crew mess area at the back of the ship, with no crew pool and barely a crew area on the top deck at the front of the ship. My first ship was much larger, 1100 crew, 2800 guests, and featured a crew bar that had 3 rooms and entry to a private area in the front of the ship with pools and seating, all at the front of the ship. On both ships, I shared a room with a member of my band. My first ship, I roomed with the keyboardist, who was much older than me. We got along, but it was apples and oranges. I had the top bunk, which ended up being the best, because the bottom bunk was coffin-like. He tried to trade me a couple of months in. I said no. On my last ship, I roomed with the guitarist. He and I were a year apart. It was his first time, and he was totally cool with having top bunk. The beds in our room were in an L shape, so it was great for space. I also had a double bed in that room, which was awesome. Everyone enjoyed coming to our room, because we'd just be hanging out in there most days, doing our thing, and not really caring about the gossip. Laundry is best done on port days, or at odd hours. Musicians work nights, so I could get away with doing my washing at 3 AM, no problem. I made good bank on both ships, more than most musicians and entertainers. I didn't mind it, because I knew what other jobs people had, and how much they made in other departments, and when you take into account how few actual hours we worked on board, it was best not to complain, or the gig prep, though. That's what hurts. Rehearsal spaces, demo videos, EPK stuff, etc. All up front. Costs to make it all back in your wages on board. My absolute favorite gig was Alaska. Didn't always care for the people, though it's so damn easy playing old 50s/60s rock all the time. 1, 4, 5 for my musician friends, but the scenery and the experiences were amazing. Plus we had turnaround day, ACA end of cruise, pick up passengers and start anew, in Vancouver, where I had many friends, so I'd get to see them about once a week. Wow, I wrote a ton. Let's leave it at that. Enjoy the book. Edit, I'm sure spelling and formatting. Edit 2, I wanted to get into mental health on ships. Basically, there is none, and zero support system, and it's unfortunate. People get all riled up, there's drama, closed quarters, etc. and things happen. If there was someone on board that was trustworthy and reliable to help educate, support and guide some of the crew, then ship life wouldn't be as destructive as it can be. I don't want to get into it, but it's a conversation I've had on almost every ship I've been on. This is great. I'm a musician who has done a bunch of contracts on cruises and I have a lot of thoughts on this. Sorry in advance for the novel. First off, things are very divided by position. There is almost a caste system in place with officers at the top, then entertainment. This includes everything from musicians to photographers and for some reason the shop workers, then front of house, wait staff and concierge, then back of house, engine room and cleaners. These groups are usually divided by nationality too, so there isn't a lot of interaction between them. For example, on one of my ships all the officers were Norwegian, all the entertainment was from the English speaking world, all the front of house was Indian and all the back of house was Filipino. As an entertainer that's what I know most, but my experience was vastly different than the Indian waiters and the Norwegian officers who mainly kept to themselves. Nearly all of my friends were under the entertainment umbrella, so that's what I'm familiar with. A few observations. The cruise life sucks you in. I'm a freelance musician on land, teaching and taking gigs. When I came back from my first 3-month-long contract, my bands had replaced me, and I had lost about half my private students. I had to start from scratch to build up all the work I had before I left, and it was several months before I was back to the amount of work I had before the cruise. I've seen entertainers that come back after a 6 or 8 month contract and find out all their work is gone. They can't rebuild their careers fast enough and burn through the money they've saved from the ship. When they end up broke and out of work, the only answer for them is to get another contract on a ship. I'm super lucky because I've seen this coming and have been able to take progressively shorter and shorter contracts. The last one I was asked to do was a week, but a lot of the cruise entertainers have kind of been roped into it. Some of the older guys have been in exactly the same position for decades and are super jaded. As for the lifestyle, it's a mix of fantastic and terrible. Paying zero rent or bills is a great deal and I've been incredibly lucky that is an option. But the pay is almost always less than what you make on land, and if you lose work on land it can be a wash. Some lines also try and suck the crew dry, charging extra for necessities like toilet paper, drinking water or overcharging for internet. Seeing the world for free is absolutely awesome. I've seen every continent but Antarctica, ridden camels in Mexico, surfed in French Polynesia, parasailed in Costa Rica, ridden Venetian gondolas, explored abandoned Sicilian castles, and hung out with monkeys on Gibraltar. But you don't get more than a taste of the ports you stop in and it almost never feels authentic. About a third of the time in port you have to spend on the ship as a job requirement, and very often you are required to work during the ports even when nearly all the passengers are on shore. You always have to watch the clock to make sure you get back to the ship on time. Usually you get about 4 hours at a given stop, which just isn't enough to get to know a place. A lot of the crew doesn't even bother with the ports once they've stopped to them 20 or 30 times and spent most of their time in coffee shops using their Wi-Fi. On land gigs there is a lot of stress that is simply gone in the crew's life. On land you spend tons of time making sure you have all the musicians lined up for the next show. You stress about getting there on time, making sure you have all the correct gear, and that the venue is actually going to pay you. If you do original music you are constantly worried about drawing people to your shows and all the other miscellaneous nonsense that goes into being a professional musician. At sea however there is none of this. You are never more than 10 minutes away from your stage. There's no worrying about traffic or whether or not enough people are coming to see you. All you have to worry about is showing up on time dressed right. But by the same token you are doing exactly the same goddamn thing over and over again. You play the same music in exactly the same way at exactly the same tempos night after night, and it wears on you. After about a week you start to run on autopilot, and after a month of playing the same songs, the thrill you got from performing, the thrill that lead you to be a professional musician in the first place is gone. Performances can feel super draining, and you end up dreading it. The same low stress that felt so great at the beginning can lead to a crushing inertia. Although this isn't true at all of the other jobs, as a musician you get a ton of free time to do whatever you want. An average workday is usually around 3 hours and the rest of the time is completely mine. Cruise contracts are always a super productive time for me. I get a ton of practice time and do a bunch of recording, writing and video projects that I don't have time to work on land. I work out every day, get tons of sleep, and have plenty of time to read. It's a great lifestyle, but all that free time can get really boring, really fast. If you come into it with a productive attitude it's a great time to get things done, but that fire can burn away pretty quickly. When you don't have an outlet to perform your original music, why bother writing? When you play the same material you've already played day in and day out, why bother practicing? A lot of entertainers get lazy pretty quickly and they start spending their time on nonsense. They binge watch old television. They spend all day eating free fatty vacation food and then sleep it off in their tiny cabins. And they drink. Holy shit, these guys drink. Beers are $1 all day, every day for crew, and for the guys that have been there forever, that's all there is to do. Basically this is a great lifestyle, as long as you don't get stuck in it. I've been, thank God, in a serious long-term relationship for my whole career on ships, so I've always had someone pulling me back to land, and I've always had a safety net to come back to. I've made it work, because moved up over a few years from sideman to band leader, and I've moved around to different companies that let me take shorter and shorter contracts. As far as I'm concerned those are definitely the way to go. If you are at a transitional point in your life where you can afford to be gone for a while, taking a cruise gig is a great idea. Just don't let them pull you in, because before you know you'll end up a decade from now 10 years older and with nothing to show for it. I have a cousin whose job is basically to get people interested in the activities that happen on a cruise ship. Like when they're doing a cooking demonstration, she's the one making it, and she also goes to the evening dinners to get people talking and to try the drinks and stuff. The thing I remember most from what she's told me is that there are basically 3 to 4 channels on the TVs, and they loop the same movies over and over. So you'll end up watching a movie in chunks depending on when you turn your TV on, until they switch out the movies. There's also the no internet thing. She usually checks in with people only when the ship docks somewhere and she can get a signal. Also, when it comes to getting assigned to ships, they'll take seniority and relationships into consideration. Once my cousin and another girl with the same job were applying to work on a certain ship that both their BFS had already been assigned to. With this job, it's one person per ship. My cousin got the assignment because she had seniority, but the contracts are about 6 to 8 months, so it's not the end of the world in most cases. She's dating the first mate of a ship. I'm low-key jealous because he's British and is super nice, so they try to get assigned to the same ship when possible. There are some elderly people who will spend the rest of their lives on the ship because it's better than a retirement home, better food, presumably, more entertainment, etc. My cousin is a world traveler. She's been on all 7 continents, including Antarctica, so this is the perfect job for her. Edit. Thought of some more stuff. My cousin admitted that she felt a little bad sometimes because she has the status of entertainer but doesn't technically have to put in the rehearsal work that they do, like the dancers and other performers. Her job is to mingle with the clients and make sure everyone is having a good time. I would find it exhausting, but I'm not a social butterfly like her. Her cruise line is the only one that still has this job. I don't think any others do. You can actually get degrees in being a captain and such, which was what her BF was doing. I think he compared it to a master's degree. The last time I talked to them, he was basically 1 or 2 tests away from getting his degree, at which point he would officially be a captain and would get his own ship. Since her BF is the first mate, my cousin has actually been involved in helping with repairs of the ship. Cruise lines have these giant dry docks somewhere. She ended up in Italy, where they sail the ship in, drain it so it's resting on dry land, and then go in and do repairs, including replacing flooring and stuff like that. My cousin agreed to help out since her BF was supervising the overall construction. She got assigned to watch a welder. Her job was to literally sit there and watch the welder work and make sure a spark didn't fly up and start a fire. She couldn't listen to music or an audiobook or anything. Can't get distracted in case she misses a spark. She compared it to watching paint dry, except a little more exciting due to the possibility of something going up in flames. It really varies by what position you have on the ships. I worked for 2 cruise lines and worked on 7 ships. There are 3 classes of people on the ship. The top rank, which is officers. They have their own dining hall and better food gets served there than the other 2, which is staff mess and crew mess. Staff are the entertainment team, childcare team, photography, and shore excursion, any type of non-officer management and guest service team. Crew are the shitty jobs like room stewards, deck hands, bartenders, cooks, etc. The food is not the same as what the guests eat in both messes. In staff mess we have waiters, and if you don't see what you like you can order an egg on a bun or hamburger or something like that. In the crew mess the food is more Asian palate based. Some days there will be fish head soup, some days you will have normal cream of mushroom soup. There will always be some sort of chicken that's been sitting out too long and not hot. Some sort of cold cooked veggies, salad, pasta, dessert and fruit. This does not sound bad, and for the first month on board it is not. But it end up being the same food constantly. Mondays are fish stick days and Wednesdays are undercooked burger days. Now staff members can eat in the buffet lines on the sun deck or Lido deck. Depending on the cruise line they have different deck names. This isn't so bad, but it's also every same day of the cruise it's the same food on the buffet. It gets old. Now for living on the ship. When you first get on you will have to go to crew admin and get assigned a room. This room will most likely change after a few cruises. They like putting departments together. For example, I was a sound tech, and once the previous sound tech was gone I moved into his D room with the light tech. The rooms are close to 4 meters by 2 meter wide, including a desk, TV, bunk bed, very small closet for 2 and a bathroom which is like super small. Crew life. In my experiences, each month the department has to plan the events for a month. This includes one crew bingo, movie night and a few parties. The ships have one crew bar, some have a games room for crew as well. I usually just brought my box with me and hooked it to the TV in my room. Beer is $1.25 for a bottle and $3 for a double mixed drink. There is also a system I found out on the ships. If you are an asshole and genuinely nice person, the crew member will like you, even if you are part of entertainment. If you make good friend, you can get free alcohol while working comedy club, all of band karaoke, or pizza delivered to your room. Also, they do have random tests for drugs every month, but I have never had to do one. You are only supposed to have 0.08 blood alcohol level while not working. But as long as you are not an asshole drunk, you can drink until you don't remember, and security won't bother you. There are discounts when working on the ships. In the watch store I got a $700 watch for $350 and a 40 ounces of Captain for $10. Work life. There are days I have worked for 14 hours and there are days I worked for 15 minutes. It varies by the day and what's happening, or if it's cast change. A typical day for me would be to wake up around 10, go do a lounge walk to make sure all background music was playing in each area, go check out the bikinis on Lido, go back to my room, place those box, go get lunch, set up shop, talk for shopping in the ports, get go ready. After that, when bingo is done, turn off projector, go back to my room and have a nap. Once nap is done, go get ready for the show. Replace batteries in microphones, load up show on soundboard, load pyro, run down to eat dinner, run back up to get background music playing, then do show 1. After show 1, talk to performers, make adjustments, do show 2. Run from main theater to back lounge at the other end of ship and set up live band karaoke or comedy depending on the day. Do that until 12:30 am. I should go to crew bar or crew party, drink, then go to bed. There is a lot of training to do when you get on board. Crowd management, life saving, other ones which I forget. Every 3 months all crew have to go through immigration. If you are in an American port and are foreign, you need a thing called an I-95 to get off. You get it after your first cruise. It will be renewed every 3 months. Every now and then you will have to do lifeboat tests and see how many people can fit in the lifeboat. They bring it down to the water. 300 crew member will fit. If there were such a disaster, I don't believe 300 bigger Americans would fit, as it is a squeeze with 300 skinny to average people. There are random boat drills every few weeks and you will have to do port manning. I need crews a month, which means you cannot get off the ship for that time. Also, the days we go by are not Monday to Sunday. It's home port, sea day 1, Cozumel, Progreso, sea day 2, home port for example. It's very easy to lose track of day and month. You will get fired if you get caught sleeping with a guest. To get around this, you just get a hotel room in port. If you are sleazy like some crew member, you can have a family at home, a GF on the ship and a fuck buddy in a port. I have had a friend that took girl back to his room and she didn't tell her friend. The friend reported her missing and we had to search the whole ship and do a head count of people to make sure she didn't fall overboard. Speaking of people falling overboard, it happens more than you think. One cruise we had a production singer thinking it was a great idea to do a handstand on the railing and help fell over, and we spent hours looking for him and was never to be seen again. Every thinks he got sucked through the propellers. Drunk people fall off the balconies into lifeboats or into the water, about 1 per contract. It's sad. I believe I put everything down here. If you have any questions, feel free to PM me. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe the channel.